And I'm going to read the purpose of this meeting. The Hinckley Township Board of Zoning Appeals and the Zoning Commission will hold a special meeting on October 28th, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of an educational seminar with the Medina County Department of Planning Services. The meeting will be held at the Township Administration Building located at 1410 Ridge Road, Hinckley, Ohio. And you can log in at hinkleytownship.org for the Zoom option to observe and listen only. Now, the reason that we're holding an educational seminar is because it's actually part of the township's rules and regulations for our zoning commission and board of appeals members that they attend a zoning educational seminar or zoning training on an annual basis. And it is part of our organizational minutes. So you will all be compensated, actually, get $25 for attending an educational seminar. And because of COVID last year, there really wasn't a whole lot of training opportunities for our board members. And this year, I'm going to be honest with you, really didn't look a whole lot better because I've kept an eye on that. In the past, there's been some APA, there's been some OPA training that's been available. I've attended a number of those over the years. They're very well. They have several attorneys that oftentimes present some zoning information. However, there just hasn't been a lot of opportunities. So in wanting to provide this opportunity to our boards, I asked Denise Testa, the director of the Medina County Department of Planning Services, to provide some information about what the department does. And the reason for that is because we've had a really busy year here in Hinckley Township that has involved both the Medina County Department of Planning Services and the Medina County Planning Commission. And so I've had some questions from some of the zoning members about, well, why sometimes does the Planning Commission say, the Department of Planning Services state one thing about a site plan, but then the Planning Commission might vote a separate way? I've had some questions from our appeals board members as far as why did this site plan get reviewed by the Planning Commission, but this site plan didn't? And I will tell you that actually the Department of Planning Services is involved with a lot of different things that I'm sure many of you have no idea that they oversee here in Medina County. Now, we also open this up to the public to observe the meeting because I believe that professional development, educational development is important for everybody in the community. So we're allowing them to observe this training. However, the dialogue and the questions will remain from our board members to the director because it is an educational seminar for the purpose of educating our board members. If any residents happen to have any questions, because I am a member of the Planning Commission, I'll be happy to answer your questions, and you can email me at ckalina@hinkleytwp, that's all one word, .org, and I'll be happy to get back with you and answer all of your questions. And if I can't answer your question, I'll turn things over to Denise Testa and allow her to answer your questions. So that's all I have at this point in time. I'm going to turn things over to Denise. And I think everybody received their handouts coming in so that you can follow along with the meeting. And I welcome Denise Testa. She is the director of the Department of Planning Services. And I've known Denise now for how many years, Denise?
14 years.
14 years, I guess, because Denise has held other roles within Medina County. She's very familiar with Medina County. And she really brought a different view and a different vision to the Department of Planning Services. And I've enjoyed working with you. So I'll turn things over to you, Denise.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, let me just, all right, there we go. All right, there we go. Well, again, thank you for inviting me tonight, and thank you, Chris. As Chris mentioned, in my previous life, I worked for 25 years in higher education. So Chris has given me full reign to do like a 3-hour lecture, if that's okay with everyone. I'm just, but I did spend from 2007. I worked at Akron as well as Kent State University down in Tuscarawas. So, and when I started that job, actually, they said the R is silent, if any of you have ever been to Tuscarawas County. So, but essentially, I'm a servant and situational leader that enjoys working with cross-functional teams. And so when I started this position about 1 year and 2 months ago, I was really excited to kind of see how those skill sets fit what the Planning Commission was accomplishing, as well as the county, and to interact and collaborate with our townships. So I work, I volunteer, I eat, and I shop in Medina County. I just happen to sleep in Jackson Township, located in Stark County. But I do everything here in Medina because I have I'm very honored to work in Medina. It's one of my favorite places in the state. And in my spare time, I actually like to plan, if any of you remember, it is Neil Zucker. I love to plan one-tank trips. And I have about between 15 and 20 individuals who are in their family and friends who are between the ages of 15 and 80. And I plan one-tank trips just as a hobby because it's something I enjoy. And a lot of times we go to historical sites. And I was very honored and excited as one of my first visits as planning director to the Hinckley Historical Society. I was able to experience a personal tour. So that meant a lot to me. So we'll go ahead and get started. So you can kind of see our mission statement up at on the screen there. Again, I'm not going to read it to you, but it's pretty straightforward. And one of those, let's see here. I don't know if I can get this for some reason. This isn't moving. Okay, let's do this. Always a plan B, right?
Denise, if you bring that back up in the
Oh.
lower left-hand corner, it's very faint, but you'll see little arrows.
Okay.
Click on that.
Apparently, I need some glasses. Okay, so part of our role with planning services and fair housing does include, as Chris mentioned, the Medina County Planning Commission. And he mentioned that, in some cases, we see plans and review them and approve them, and in other cases, we do not. And typically, when there is a new build or a parcel of land that is not being subdivided, or that it is not including new roads, we typically do not see those plans. So if somebody comes in and they want to build something on a parcel of land that they're not subdividing, they're not adding new roads, then it essentially stays within the township, and you review it for compliance with zoning and compliance with your comprehensive plan. However, with the Planning Commission, we were created under state law, and the Ohio Revised Code is essentially 713.22. And we are guided also not only by the Ohio Revised Code, but also by our bylaws. So we also have a set of bylaws as well. We work with the townships. The county also has planning commissions in our cities and our villages. They implement or create their own planning commissions. We work with what is known as the unincorporated areas in our state, but I like the word townships. It sounds much more personal. We have a total of 11 members. 3 of them are our Board of Commissioners. 3 are from our cities, so we have 3 cities in the county. We have 1 village mayor, and then 2 are appointed by the Medina County Township Association. So if you're doing your math, I think that adds up to 11. I wasn't a math major, by the way. So again, our mission, based on what is noted in our bylaws, is to assist local units of government by providing land planning guidance, and further to create and administer Medina County Subdivision Regulations, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that promote sound, orderly development benefiting the citizens of Medina County. So that was in line with kind of the purpose that I had shown on the first page. We meet the first Wednesday of each month at 6:30 in the County Administration Building in Balcony Room B on the 3rd floor. It is an open public meeting, and anyone is welcome to attend. We also, as part of our role with the planning department, we make recommendations, and some of you have probably seen those recommendations that we make to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission then votes to either accept that recommendation or create a new recommendation to accept, or they decide to just disapprove the recommendation. So Sometimes we have our 3 opportunities for the most part are approve with modifications, or disapprove. And each time we present a recommendation to our planning commission, we include a staff report. So our staff reports are written by Rob Henwood, our senior planner, which some of you may know Rob. He's been with the department, I believe, since 2013. And I also write those reports as well. And then we present those together at the Planning Commission meetings. So regarding our subdivision regulations, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit. Our subregs are located on our website. So if you have a night where you just want to read some very interesting documents, just read our subregs and you'll probably go right to sleep. Actually, no, just kidding. And our staff reports and decisions are guided by our subdivision regulations. So in addition to that, the subdivisions, by the way, are defined also in the Ohio Revised Code, and that's section 711.001 for those of you who really want to get into the Ohio Revised Code, which I've done since I've started, and then I tend to call the prosecutor's office for interpretation. So at any rate, as we look at what is a subdivision, again, it's a division of any parcel of land shown as a unit or as contiguous units on the last preceding tax list. And it's dividing it into 2 or more parcel sites or lots, any one which is less than 5 acres. So that would be a minor subdivision, and we have different kinds of subdivisions that we review. The individuals or the items that probably interest you the most are the major subdivisions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the minors as well. So I did bring actually a sample staff report, and this was written by, me. I looked at another one that Sonia had written, but I remember I chose this one. So this is the reserve at Pine Valley. And this staff report was actually a revised preliminary plan and a final phase, or a final plat, phase 1A. So essentially, when we receive a subdivision, the first kind of step is called the concept plan. And the concept plan is not an official plat as designed by Ohio Revised Code 711.01. So a concept plan is essentially what it sounds like. They bring the concept to us. We meet the 3rd Wednesday of every month. So the Planning Commission meets the 1st Wednesday. For the concept meeting, we are meeting with the developers, our commenting agencies, hopefully our townships, as well as planning services, to kind of bring those entities together in order to discuss the concept that has been presented. We do create a staff report, but we do not make a recommendation to the Planning Commission because at that point it is not an official plat. So again, this month, actually coming up in November, for an unprecedented month, we have 4 concept plans that we are reviewing. 2 in Granger, 2 in Sharon. We don't have any in Hinckley, but so that's going to be a very interesting month. We're going to go straight through like 8 to noon and get all 4 of them together. So I'm bringing food if anybody would like to come. So at any rate, as you look at the site, or the next phase is a preliminary plan, and that whenever we review a subdivision, as I kind of took this screenshot, these are the agencies that we contact when we receive a subdivision for review. Chris probably knows this, as well as the planning team, Cheryl and Rob. I love checklists. So this is just one of probably half a dozen checklists that we use in the office to make sure that we are consistent and persistent when we review a subdivision plan. So when the first thing that we do is we send it out for comment, including to the townships or township, and we really review that subdivision based on our subdivision regulations. And I believe it's Article 4 is what covers our subdivisions. So we look at that and we review it, and most of the work that goes into a subdivision occurs at the preliminary plan level. So it's very important that we're thorough. And we have probably, for a preliminary plan, I think we look at maybe 50 to 65 different areas, and we go point by point in our subdivision, and we compare that to what's on the survey and what is in the application. We also, if we see something that's somewhat different, or what some surveyors can define it as creative, we may call up the township zoning inspector and say, hey, what do you think of this? Did you see this? Because we're not sure if this is in compliance with your zoning. So we also familiarize ourselves not only with the subdivision regulations, but also our township zoning resolutions, as well as our township comprehensive plans. Those are 3 very important documents as part of the subdivision process. So we also obviously look at the sanitary engineer or the health department, depending on if it's central sewer and water or on site. The highway engineer is a very important part of the process, as well as if it's on a state route, which, as we know, 303 and 94 kind of head through Hinckley. We also engage with ODOT as well. So as you look at the staff report, you'll note that we not only include the comments, but the individuals' names, as well as their contact information who are making those comments. Tax maps is another one that has been really helpful for us. They actually report to the highway engineer. So this plan that I am showing you now, it is a little bit different because it does include a revised preliminary plan as well as a final plat phase 1A. So then what I also did was I included the phase 1A plat kind of in the back of your packet, as well as the preliminary plan. The difference between a preliminary plan and a final plat is essentially a preliminary plan demonstrates the entire subdivision. So if there are 4 phases or 2 phases, they show all the phases. If it is a final plat, typically we're looking at phase 1A or phase 1B, and then we go from there. So by the way, the Planning Commission did vote to accept approval with modifications on this plan. I do believe in the original preliminary plan, though, there was a recommendation by, and this was before I started, there was a recommendation to include a stub street in this subdivision. And I believe there was feedback from the township. They didn't really want a stub street, or you didn't want a stub street. I don't believe the developer wanted a stub street. So the Planning Commission voted to approve with modifications, but without the stub street. Part of our planning kind of philosophy is that we do look not only what is being presented, but what could be in the future. And we're starting to see a little bit more of that in one of our townships in particular, where there is in a area of about, I want to say 1 mile, we have 5 subdivisions in 1 mile of each other on the same state route or route, depending on where you're from. So at any rate, you can take a look at this if you have questions, but this kind of gives you an idea of our process. Finally, next step would be they work or they create a construction plan. That is the plan that they work with the highway engineer as well as sanitary engineer to kind of get moving on the infrastructure. They may also include a site plan to the township or a development plan. They all are kind of called differently. And then finally, when we receive a final plat, the preliminary plan conditions must be met at that point, or they must be shown on the plat. Once a final plat has been approved, if there are changes to that subdivision, they are required to submit what's called a replat. And a replat can either be approved administratively, or it can be approved, or I'm sorry, not approved. It can be reviewed administratively, or it can be reviewed by our Planning Commission. It depends on the significance of the replat. If it's creating a new building site, it typically does need to go through our Planning Commission. If they're just moving a lot line because maybe the lot line was going across a pond or something, or they needed to adjust something as they started building, then, it's usually an administrative replat. Most of the time when we see it go to the planning commission, they're either extending a road, moving a road, or they're making lots bigger, or they're making lots smaller or something like that, because they found something out that they didn't realize when they had created the plat. So we also, in addition to subdivisions, we also complete what are called, and you've actually submitted a couple just this year, are text and map amendments. I don't think we've had any map amendments this year, but we did have a pretty significant, actually, text amendment submitted. So, and I did include an application or an example of a text amendment that was submitted in January of 2020. Sonia reviewed this, and I believe it was addressing agritourism and some signs that they wanted exempt from the zoning resolution. So essentially, when we receive a text amendment, we read it over, and then what we do is we utilize your zoning resolution and your comprehensive plan to see if those amendments are in line with what your zoning resolution and comprehensive plan have indicated. We also may have to do some additional research. If it's something that maybe isn't addressed in your comprehensive plan, or it's something that's just brand new and maybe your comprehensive plan was written a couple years ago and this is a new topic, we'll do some research as well. We will look at what other communities or townships have done or are doing. We also will contact and look at research done in the field. So for example, I think we looked at, there were some you were making some text amendments with your solar setbacks and design. So we actually went to through the American Planning Association, and they had some articles, some recent articles on solar design in residential areas, and what made sense, what doesn't make sense, what was the pitfalls, what were the benefits. And so we also do that, as well as we might come in with some research that we found. In some cases, we can't find any research, and sometimes it's just a matter of using, and this, is what I call the common sense approach. I can also be uncommonsensical, which I know is not a word, but we like that in our office, so we use it. But we also like the common sense approach, which what makes sense. And then, but we do provide it with reasoning and critical thinking and discussion. And we also may call our zoning inspectors and say, hey, what was the reason for this? Was there an issue? Did you have a lot of violations? We recently, actually last month, had one township that was completely eliminating a section out of their zoning resolution. I'm like, why in the world would you do that? Why wouldn't you want to make sure that you have, regulations around this? Well, it's because they haven't received an application in 20 years. And it was an out-of-date technology that they no longer needed to regulate. So it made sense to just eliminate it, because most likely that technology is not coming back, because it's gargantuan technology, and now it's probably about this big, or it's underground. So at any rate, we also, so I thought that you'd also be interested. I included 2 additional, and again, I know this is a lot of paper. I probably got rid of a lot of trees, and I apologize for that, but I really do feel I am very much a believer in reflective thinking, because I'm throwing a lot of information out here today. And if I don't send you away with anything, then I'm not going to look competent, first of all. And secondly, if you need to go back because I said something that maybe you had a question about, you need to refer to, then you can reflect on that and then take a look at what I gave you. You're also obviously welcome to call me anytime, as you'll have my contact information. So what I did include were township zoning amendment procedures. I included an executive summary that is complementary to what I call this mind map as well. So this is kind of the abbreviated version that is complementary to the executive summary procedure. I know that, we get a lot of questions in terms of, okay, if the Planning Commission reviews a text or map amendment, do we have to follow what the Planning Commission recommends? And the answer is no. We are an advisory council when it comes to text and map amendment. We provide a neutral kind of point of view and information for then the zoning commission to then consider when they vote on what their recommendation is going to be to the trustee. And obviously that's following any public hearing and zoning commission discussion. So our role with zoning or with text and map amendments is strictly advisory. And in some cases, as Chris mentioned, we had a situation like this year is where we made I will say I, because it was me. I made a recommendation to our planning commission, and it was to disapprove an amendment. And the planning commission, after spirited discussion, thoughtful conversation, decided not to accept my recommendation. And I have such a strong respect for this process. That's what it's all about. Just because one person recommends something does not mean the group that has to accept it. And that is what makes this process, I think, so impactful. Because it does, I'm one person and there's 11 on the board, and they have their own thoughts in their own minds. They can make it up, because we had other individuals there who were presenting not also agreeing with my recommendation. So at any rate, I do not have a very large ego these days. So I never did anyway. All right. Are there any questions or anything about some of this? I know, like I said, I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Then we also look at, in addition to our major subdivisions, we also look at what are called minor subdivisions and large lot. So we review minor subdivision and large lots on behalf of the Planning Commission. Typically, a minor subdivision does not go to the Planning Commission, although we did have one, actually, I think in September, that the Planning Commission reviewed. The minors are defined in Ohio Revised Code 711.131, and the large lots are defined in 711.133. The survey is always reviewed and signed by the township before it even gets to us. So by signing that survey, the township is telling us this complies with our zoning resolution. This is within our regulations. So that's part of the threshold of review, is that we always make sure two trustees or I believe it's at least two trustees and a zoning inspector sign the survey. So for a minor subdivision, those are essentially located along an existing public street, meeting the established frontage requirements of the township zoning. There's limited to not more than 5 lots. If there is one lot less than 5, then that is a minor subdivision. For a large lot, and this is what's really interesting, a large lot subdivision is if there is between a 5 and 10 acre lot, and they can split as many lots as they want. There's no limit. Whereas with a minor subdivision, it's only up to 5. Don't ask me why, how they wrote the ORC. We also complete zoning maps, or update your zoning map. And actually I brought one of yours here. So you've probably all seen this. Most of it is residential, as we know. So anytime there is an update to your zoning map, we can do that as well. And then we also complete, if there's a customized map that someone needs, when we moved to our new office, we actually fit our plotter in the HVAC room. You will laugh if you ever see it. I will never invite you in there, but because if you've ever been in our office, it's not very big, but we put it in with the furnace. So we're able to make these gargantuan maps if you ever need one. Okay, I think there we go. We also, as part of our role, we offer grant management as well. So our primary grants are actually CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, that assist low and to moderate income neighborhoods and blighted areas. It can also include improvements for individuals with disabilities as well. which I believe is what we did, I think in 2018. And I actually had an opportunity to ride the elevator that was installed in the Hinckley Historical Society building. So I provided a couple of beautiful pictures. It was probably freezing cold because I don't see any leaves on the trees, but that was one of the first CDBG projects that I actually had the opportunity to experience. We also complete or coordinate the CHIP program, which is Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program, where individuals can, if they qualify, they can have repairs to their homes made. They can get or obtain new roof, new windows. And again, these are low income individuals who meet certain thresholds. We also coordinate and actually received for the first time a critical infrastructure grant. That is, some of you may be aware of this in Lafayette Township, where the old amusement park is. If you ever have gone on Main Drive there off of, that's Lake Road. So it's south of Wedgwood or State Route 162. So if you ever turn in there, it takes you back to a community that there's one way in and one way out, and it's a bridge that is desperately failing. In fact, the only trucks that will go over that bridge are Amazon, and it's probably because they don't know how bad it is. Our emergency trucks and fire and police in Lafayette will not go over that bridge. So they have a little plan in place in order to get to the residents. But I am very happy to report that because of Linda Bowers, their trustee, and Nate Epping, our parks director, and those two, and as well as Mark Albrecht from Albrecht Trucking, they are installing a temporary access drive for emergency access only next week. And it's actually about 3 months ahead of schedule. So they're going to install just a bare bones temporary drive. And then once our grant activates, then we are going to improve that temporary drive so that it can be used on a daily basis while the bridge is being replaced. Even the post office, I don't think, goes across that bridge. Our current CDBG projects this year that we have awarded are Brunswick repaired and resurfaced the Lincoln Avenue, Jefferson Avenue road. I believe it's just, it's kind of in the, really very close to the center of town there. In Brunswick Hills, we're demolishing a house. Harrisville, they are reformatting and rewriting their zoning resolution. In Lodi, we are completing a fountain repair and installing a playground. Wadsworth, we are offering, in cooperation with each of these communities, homelessness financial assistance. And we have about 20,000. I think we've already used 15 of that. And then we also are completing a sidewalk repair. So those are just kind of in Montville. Or I'm sorry, not Montville, that's Wadsworth also. I believe Montville, we are extending a handicap path at Cobblestone. So next, we also complete or coordinate fair housing, which I've included some brochures here today. And the Fair Housing Act is really, it protects our residents from housing discrimination. The housing discrimination is based on the protected classes of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. Some individuals do think that fair housing is, well, you have to provide me housing. That is not our role. Our role is to assist residents who have experienced housing discrimination because of one of these protected classes. So on our website, we actually have our intake form. They can complete that. And then if there is a potential housing discrimination, I will call the landlord or the institution that the resident is indicating they've been discriminated against, and really just kind of start a kind of investigation. If it is seen as a discrimination case, then we will work with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission as well as HUD. Honestly, at most of our calls are my landlord will not repair my apartment or there's something broken. So we do have a number of resources for them, including community legal aid. We also have Medina Metropolitan Housing who can help with emergency housing. So we have a list of, as well as I think there's the Wayne Medina County Community Action, United Way. So we try to get them in touch with the resources that they need in order to assist them in a time of crisis. We also are very active in the Housing Council, which we are currently in the process of revamping or reworking our mission and vision with that group as well. And that includes quite a few of those agencies that we coordinate with or collaborate with as well. So finally, I also thought you might want to see some of the resources that we access and that I access on a regular basis. If you have any interest as a individual or a township to become a member of the American Planning Association, I found that's where I do a lot of my research actually, because they have articles, they're up to date, they're usually less than 5 years old, which is very important. And I also have found the Ohio Township Association very helpful. But we also have some great townships in our county who have very strong zoning resolutions and comprehensive plans. So usually my first stop is Medina County, is I just call a couple people up and say, what do you recommend or what are your thoughts? And then I will look at the research after that. I've included our website, our agendas and our minutes are all on our website. Actually, when Rob started, he really organized our website and posted all of those items, including staff reports since 2013. So we are in the process of digitizing all of our records. So that's been quite a process. So everything will actually be digitized, I'm hoping, by this time next year. We moved offices and there were still final plats in our original office, I think when the dinosaurs were still in Medina. So we also have a very good county website that has all of our fair housing. The Ohio Balanced Growth Program has been very helpful. And then of course, our Medina County agencies as well. And then finally, our contact information. So as you know, I could not do this by myself. So we have Cheryl Hinckley, who assists me with fair housing and is our administrative assistant. We have Rob, who is our senior planner and has been in the field for 20 years. And then of course you have finally me. So I'm usually the one that under promises or over promises and under delivers. No, I'm just kidding. So did you want to open it up for questions, Chris? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
What questions?
Over to our board members.
Sure.
What
questions did you have? I'm fine with whatever.
Your boisterous group.
I was going to say, either I bored them to death and.
I just think it's timing. I'm over here yawning.
Well, Denise, I'll throw a question out to you. Back when I first started working with the Department of Planning Services, which was not called the Department of Planning Services back in 1996. They were known more affectionately as just the CPC at that time. And there's still a number of people in Medina County that refer to them as the CPC. However, the staff actually reported to and worked with the Planning Commission. So who's your boss?
I would say my personal boss is Scott Miller, our county administrator. And then our liaison, our county commissioner liaison is Steve Hamley. And Steve, I believe, was the individual who, shall we say, reconfigured the planning office back when he was commissioner the first time. So the idea is to bring more of rather than an approval commission or reviewing commission, I think he kind of brought in an opportunity for the planning component, which includes land use, existing land use, future land use, past land use, zoning, because at that time, I think a lot of townships and communities were just really ramping up their zoning process and resolutions at that point. So, but I think it was Steve who kind of
It was
spearheaded that.
absolutely Steve
Okay.
Hinckley who spearheaded that and really changed.
He changed the
look
He did.
of the Department of Planning Services, and
That's right.
it's worked very efficiently and
Right.
effectively since then.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Right. And actually some of when I first started about a year ago, I mean, one of the challenges we had was to, go to a digital kind of model. And, what was taking us, 2-3 days now takes us to complete projects, takes us about an hour to complete, which is why there's only 3 of us. We're not working 60, 70 hours a week, but we're working hard, but we're working smart also. And that was something that when I came on board, I asked a lot of questions. Well, why are we doing this? And who is supposed to do that? Oh, and who are we supposed to contact? And once I kind of figured that out, that took me about 2 months. And then the checklist started. So once the checklists were implemented, I think we really kind of all understood our individual functionalities within the office. We were working leaner. We're able to take on more projects, which is a good thing if you have a certain perspective, but it allows us to do more for our residents in our townships. And, we were at one point when we would receive a large survey, we would go to the Xerox and take pictures of or copies of sections of that survey and then tape them together. I don't know. It was really an interesting process. So once we got the technology and the understanding of how we could work smarter, things have just really been rocking and rolling since then. And I'm glad we did it because we have 10 items on our agenda for our November meeting. And I think there are 6 subdivisions. So.
After you go through like a subdivision, you go through your review of all your people, everybody puts their comments in, you come up with your final report.
Mhm.
It goes back to the township and the township says, I don't agree with this and I don't agree with that. What happens?
So what we ask that you do is, well, first of all, the township is a commenting agency. So we would hope that as a commenting agency, our township would provide us with that information up front. If a subdivision is out of compliance with zoning, then we support the idea that it needs to become in compliance with the zoning. Because if you're telling us it is not in compliance for whatever reason, and you show us the section of the resolution that it's not compliant with, our subdivision regulations at the preliminary plan stage as well as the final plat stage, we have to confirm with you that it's in compliance with zoning. And if it's not, then we make that one of our modifications that they have to be compliant with zoning. Now, if it's something that cannot, the question is, well, what if it can't be backed up by the resolution? Then, we may have, some discussion around that. In some cases, we may have to contact our prosecutor's office for an opinion. Because again, our goal, and actually Steve said this to me the other day, and don't quote me, but he said, planning's mission is to minimize the friction. And so when we receive a comment that is just like, there is no way this is going to work because of this, and this, then what we try to do is we try to work with whatever agency is telling us that and the developer and say, let's come together. And then we might, that'll give us some time then to hopefully come up with a solution before we even make our recommendation in the staff report. So that's why we take 3 weeks to get those agency comments in, because then we at least have a little bit of time before the next planning commission meeting to make those adjustments. In fact, we had one of those issues where, well, the township wasn't upset with our recommendation, but what happened is our recommendation was based on a condition that ODOT would approve a variance. ODOT did not approve that variance, unfortunately. And so she had to submit what is now a revised preliminary plan. She could not go to the final plat because that was, and she went from, she submitted the variance to ODOT. ODOT rejected it. She went to appeal it. they rejected the appeal. And so at that point, our modification for that ODOT requirement was done, unfortunately. So she had to rework her. And I mean, actually, it wasn't a lot of work to change, but it was enough of a revision that it's going to be seen by the Planning Commission this Wednesday, actually. So
Thank you.
we've had those issues though. Did you have a question?
And
Sure.
sorry, I'm still digesting some of this.
I know, it's a lot of information.
Planning Commission
Mhm.
really only serves predominantly the township.
Correct.
So why are 4 members, which is pretty heavy, actually, more than the 2 township liaisons?
Mhm.
Why are there 4 members that are for the villages and the cities? I mean, what?
It's, that's a good question. I mean, I wasn't around for the, conception or inception of the Planning Commission. So, I mean, I guess they probably, if I had to guess, and this is a hypothesis, I don't even know if I would call it an educated guess, but I imagine they wanted a broad-based represented group of the county so that they could bring in other perspectives, because keep in mind, our townships are adjacent to villages. Our townships are adjacent to cities. In fact, what's really interesting is some of our townships they are adjacent to a city where the county is not providing sewer and water, the city is providing sewer and water. So it kind of does, provide that connection to our adjacent communities. And again, please keep in mind, that is a complete educated guess. I'm sure there are individuals in the county that were around when we were created that know more than me.
I would say another possibility was there was a time when the cities had up to 2 miles, they could decide what happened in townships.
Oh, okay. See, I knew there would be someone who knew more than me. Okay.
No doubt, but
I do. And actually, and then our county commissioners, each of our planning commission members have an alternate, and then our county commissioners appoint alternates as well. So, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. But that's a good point. Any other questions? All right, Chris, do you have any? I know you're always.
Mr. Manley and his history here in Hinckley Township is absolutely correct with that. And Dave, I thought it was the 3-mile rule,
sorry,
but
I can't.
yeah,
As you get older, you forget.
just going back in time, it was the 3-mile rule that the
Okay.
cities used to be able to actually impact developments and plans within the township, within that range. And that was pretty contentious back in the day. And they would do it. They absolutely would change plans, in terms of such as if Hinckley Township wanted a cul-de-sac, Brunswick might not have, and they would have just said, nope, that's going to be a through street, and just honestly overrode the township. So a lot has changed. Townships do have a little bit more say in their own destiny, but there certainly are, I would tend to agree with your explanation with that. I think because it is a county-wide organization and there are decisions that are being made at the Planning Commission, recommendations that are made that impact the entire county, that they do that. Now, personally, well,
It's the same thing on NOLAC.
yeah, well, personally, I can tell you that, there have been some plans here in Hinckley Township where I have felt I've been persuasive enough to have the cities vote along with the townships. And so we've had unanimous decisions from them. So, I think we have a really good representative group that's on the Planning Commission that, really respects the townships and their right to govern. And I honestly don't see a lot of that, within the group of individuals that currently represent, and they're appointed to the board by the different organizations. So it's a good group of people who, the great thing about the Planning Commission in my mind is most people that serve on township boards, and I've had the honor of serving on 3 township boards here in Medina County, and sharing those 3 boards, most of them are just residents, like each one of us are, and they come from different professions. And occasionally you might get somebody with some planning background, but it's kind of rare. Most of them are just individuals who care about their community, that want to make a difference, that want to serve, and having that extra set of eyes, having the knowledge of hearing from all the different townships, there's 17 townships in Medina County, and having that understanding of what's in their zoning resolutions, what's in their comprehensive plans, and being able to share that information with our community really benefits our community. And then having on staff a professional planner as well, which Mr. Henwood is a professional planner, and having his input and review at those meetings, whether he was the person that reviewed it or not, because oftentimes, you know, we might get some feedback from Denise, and Denise does a fabulous job for our township. She's done a great job with all the townships. Just having that extra set of eyes, that professional view, Denise's knowledge of the county, bringing all that together really is a huge benefit to our community. So that's one of the reasons that I enjoy working with the team there. I appreciate everything that Denise does for us. She does a lot of research on the side when we have our, some of our changes that we're looking at making. We forward those to Denise, and Denise does a lot of research on behalf of the township and provides that research to us. So sometimes it's things that never see the light of day that I've asked her to
That's
put
okay.
together.
Was a driveway thing one of them?
Driveways,
All
right.
right.
We've got a lot of research in the books right now for driveways. But
Driveways are
someday-
very exciting.
Someday somebody will look at that and decide to investigate that, but we have that research done for when that point comes up. So I asked Denise if she would be kind to everyone's time this evening to keep this under an hour. She gave you a ton of information in a very short period of time. I think she did an absolutely fabulous job. So if there's no further questions from anyone, I thank you, Denise,
All
for doing a great job. And thank you for the service that you provide to Medina County as well. So at that concludes our meeting. I will, for our board members that came in virtually, really appreciate your attendance this evening, and I will notate your attendance on the sign-in sheet. So thank you all very much, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting right now, even though it's not really officially my meeting. I should really have Matt adjourn the meeting since he's the chair that's present here. So, well, you're the only chair.
Adjourned at, what is it, 7:54.
Thank you very much. So,
Amen and hallelujah.
all right, Jen, thank you. Thank you, everyone who attended virtually.